Hello students! Welcome back to Class Unboxed. My name is Ian and I'm going to be your teacher for today in Media and Information Literacy. Before we dive into our lesson for today, let's have a quick recap of our lesson last time. Here are our goals for today. We are going to define information literacy and its importance. Also, we are going to explore and differentiate the components of information literacy and know the importance of acknowledging your sources of information. Are you ready? Let's start! In our first episode, we have discussed information literacy. We have defined information literacy as the ability to identify, locate, and effectively use of information. If you possess these skills, therefore, you are information literate. Now that we are living in a digital world, information literacy requires users, whether young or old, to have the skills to use information and communication technologies, not just to access information, but also create information. But the question is why? Because the ability to explore cyberspace and negotiate documents in multimedia form requires technical skills to use the internet and the literacy skills to interpret the information. Since there is a huge amount of information available everywhere, there is a need to critically read, assess, and evaluate every bit of information so that we avoid being misled of what we read. But the question is, why is it so important? Now here's the answer. According to the study conducted by Prasanna Ranawira, information literacy is very important for number one, it empowers us to critically think, evaluate, and provide opinions, suggestions, and solutions to the pressing issue revolving around us. She also said that it also gives us the avenue to be creative as we plan and organize all the information we have gathered. And number three, information literacy helps us to cope up with data smog by filtering the necessary and unnecessary information we encounter everywhere.
It's time for a pop quiz. It is the ability to identify, locate, and effectively use of information. A. Media literacy. B. Information literacy. C. Technology literacy. Or D. None of the above. You only have 10 seconds to answer the question. 10 seconds starts now. And the answer is letter B, information literacy.
To be more information literate, here are 5 components of information literacy that we all need to be familiar. The first one is knowing the information. To be information literate means you need to know the scope and amount of information that you need and want. Knowing is the foundation of information literacy since it is geared towards the information you need. It should answer the following questions. What do I want to know? What kind of information do I need? And how much information do I really need? After knowing the information, it's time to access the information. You see, an information literate gains and opens the needed information essentially and usefully if he or she knows how to access the information around him or her. It should answer the following questions. What is the best way to get this information? And what search system and resources can I use to acquire the information needed? After knowing and accessing the information, it is a must for us to assess and evaluate the information we read. At this part of information literacy, we assess and evaluate the information we gain, if it's useful or not, because not everything we see or read on our social media or even from the internet is valid and accurate. It should answer the following questions. Is the information authentic and from a real source of information? And how can this new information affect what I have learned? After assessing the information, it's time for us to put everything into use. An information literate uses information effectively to achieve a specific goal. Knowing how to utilize such information is very, very essential. It should answer the following questions. Number 1, what is the best technique in showing this information? And number 2, will the message I want get across?
It's time for a pop quiz. After you have accessed the information, what's the next step? A. Knowing the information. B. Assessing the information. C. Accessing the information. Or D. None of the above. You only have 10 seconds to answer the question. 10 seconds starts now. And the answer is letter B, assessing the information.
As information literate individual, getting information from your sources might be easy, but there are certain things we need to remember. That goes to our last component of information literacy, which is acknowledging the source of information. In just one click from the internet, we can get to have the information we need, but we should never forget that these information came from a source. And as information literate individual, we must be aware of the rules governing the ethical and legal use of information, which we are going to expound more on our next episode. But for now, here are some of the questions that must be answered by you as you acknowledge your source. Number 1, can I duplicate this material? Number 2, are there policies about information gathering, reproducing, and disseminating information?
It's time for a pop quiz. What is the last component of information literacy? A. Knowing the information. B. Assessing the information. C. Accessing the information. Or D. Acknowledging the source. You only have 10 seconds to answer the question. 10 seconds starts now. And the answer is letter D, acknowledging the source.
As we wrap up our discussion today on information literacy, we should be aware that when we get the information we need from our source, let us not forget to give credits to the owner. Some public domains may not need permission from the authors or creators, but still, it is beneficial to understand the terms of safeguarding and copyrighting original works. Before we wrap up, let's have a quick recap. Now that you know information literacy and its components, kindly share in the comment box below why being information literate is very important. On our next episode, we are going to learn more on legal, ethical, and societal issues in media information. See you next time here on Class Unboxed. Once again, my name is Ian. Stay safe and God bless you all. Bye!